Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. Here's your flash briefing for the week of May 6th. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. If you can't watch, quickly catch up on City Council meetings by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityfls.net. This week, May 5th through the 11th, is Drinking Water Week. Let's celebrate the value of clean, safe water and the critical role it plays in our daily lives. Stop by Water Utilities at 1200 Southeast Hamblin Road during business hours this week to grab some goodies and a refreshing drink from our hydration station. The city has partnered with the Community Blood Center for a blood drive on May 13th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the city's maintenance facility, located at 1971 Southeast Hamblin Road. The time to donate is now. Find a link to register on the city's website. And mark your calendars for this Saturday, May 11th, for the Farmers Market Spring Celebration from 8 a.m. to noon at the corner of 2nd and Douglas Streets. The first 100 kiddos will have the opportunity to decorate flower pots and plant a special flower for mom. You don't want to miss out on the fun. Learn more at downtownls.org. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys, get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T is back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. These come up too. Perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple, quick.
Member Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a few of us are getting questions. I know I've gotten a few questions about the plan, so I didn't know if, just for the public knowledge. I'm not a politician. I feel like I'm just an average person in Lee Summit. They have a football field set up. Inside these cones are their football fields. Our two-car garage is we're gonna bring the driveway back through here, and it's gonna go right here. And then, so my family has chickens. When we first got chickens, my husband said, don't treat them as your pets, treat them as chickens, because we're going to be eating the eggs, and I would like to use them for meat. So don't treat them as your pets. Well, we now have 6 chickens that I consider my pets, and I will not let him kill for meat. So we live downtown, and we love living downtown. These are my children. The first one's Lincoln, and Amira, and Sophia, and Caleb. This is a great neighborhood. Downtown is one big community, and all of the kids get together and they play basketball, and we like to walk to the farmer's market. Here, hold my hand. It's an easy walk, probably less than 10 minutes. The farmer's market has always been a very important part of my life and my family's life. As a matter of fact, when my daughter started kindergarten, I dropped her off and I was going shopping at the farmer's market right behind Lee Summit Elementary. And I was teary-eyed because she was my first and she was going off to kindergarten. And Terry, the butterfly lady, the one that's in the purple shirt, and she used to make little butterfly stickers for everyone, she gave me a big hug and was just so empathetic to the fact that my daughter had just started school. How are you guys doing? Doing well. How are you? Yeah, very good. A lot of the farmers there, they've watched my kids grow up. I love Lee Summit in general. I love that it still has a small town feel while embracing growth and the arts and diversity. And I feel like downtown specifically embodies that. My kids go to Lee Summit Elementary, and a lot of their teachers live downtown, and a lot of the business owners from downtown live downtown. So when we're out walking downtown, we see so many people we know. I lived in Africa until I was 5, and then we moved to the United States, and I've lived in Lee Summit since. Oh, a lot of my childhood, my mom was a single mom, and I feel like I was essentially raised by my community and being on council, and it's just such an important way to give back to the community that raised me.
I state your name.
I, Mia Pryor,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
this day of April 2022. The election process was fun. I got to go door to door and talk to people, which is my absolute favorite thing to do, is talking to people and learning about people. I even had people inviting me into their house for dinner or inviting me back to their house to meet their spouse. And I knocked on a door, and the lady that answered the door was my kindergarten teacher. So it was a lot of fun. Is it on? Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Mia Pryor. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I have one on, can you not? Okay. Maybe I went. I love being a council rep for District 1. I know everyone says this, but District 1 is by far, in my opinion, the best district. Raintree Lake, that's part of District 1. I love that community. Actually, my husband and I got married at the clubhouse in Raintree Lake. I really love all of South Lee Summit. I love the growth that they're going to be experiencing soon and that they've already experienced. I wanted to say that if you guys have a concern, please come tell us what your concern is, because we can only address and help with what we know. We're there to kind of bridge that gap between constituents in the city, and we're the voice of our constituents, and we can go to the city and voice what their concerns are, what their ideas are. So if you have a concern, definitely make us aware. So my big priorities are public safety. That's always one of my top priorities. I've always wanted to make sure that first responders were supported. I think that that's super important to me and to many in our city. But also, I wanted to influence the growth in Lee Summit. I wanted to influence the type of businesses we get here and the type of activities there are to do for our families. If we're going to continue to grow downtown, how important it is to focus on people that already live here and the infrastructure we already have in place.
Our first presentation tonight is going to be Assistant City Manager Ryan Elam, who's going to talk about that very exciting Farmers Market Plaza.
But I want to show you the most recent rendering, fly-through video of that. That's really the best way to kind of get a good sense of what this will look like in the near future.
To see it developing into something as big as it's going to be across from City Hall is super exciting to me. I can't wait for it to get built and to start welcoming people into what the farmers market's going to be, but also everything else that goes along with that development.
Okay.
You want to hold it? Don't drop it.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest.
I'm just an average person in Lee Summit that wanted to be a voice of many that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice. Yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm just a mom that cares.
We will call to order the Lease Summit Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Could I get a roll call, please?
Art Kitchens,
Present.
Sherry Fraser, Jake Lovelace,
Present.
Dana Arth,
Present.
Johnny Funk,
Present.
Terry Trafton,
Present.
Tanya Jonna Ford,
Present.
Chip Chazinski,
Present.
Randy Benbrick.
Present.
Thank you. I know no changes to the agenda. Could I get a motion for the approval of the agenda, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Chair, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote on approval of the agenda, please?
Art Kitchens,
Yes.
Sherry Fraser,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Arth,
Yes.
Johnny Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jonna Ford,
Yes.
Chip Chazinski,
Yes.
Randy Benbrick.
Yes.
Thank you, and the agenda has been approved. We come to our section of public comments. I have one request for public comment outside of our applications we have tonight, and that is for Teresa, I don't want to mispronounce your name, Voldemir? Vollenweider. Sorry. You want to come forward and give us your public comment? Dave, do we have a length of time?
City Council typically uses 3 minutes for each public comment section,
Okay,
each person that speaks in public comments.
okay, thank you.
Teresa Vollenweider, 5201 Northeast Maybrook Road. Tonight, I'm just going to show a little bit about the state of Missouri requirements for regarding the use, requirements being rules, laws, regarding the use of professional seals for the practice of architecture, professional engineering, professional land surveying, and professional landscape architecture. Chapter 327, revised September 2020. So that's, this was a frequently asked questions that I found online. And the purpose of licensure is not so that you have a monopoly on what you do. It's because you are to safeguard the public's health, life, safety, welfare, and property. So therefore, the state of Missouri requires individuals who practice architecture, engineering, land surveying, and landscape architecture to be properly licensed. When you get to use the term professional, you get a shortcut.
I'm going to stop you for 1 minute. We're all here to hear your public comment, not to be yelled at. I don't conduct that way.
The problem becomes when you go to listen to the video, you turn it all the way up and you can't hear it. So I've learned that I need to speak louder so that when you go to the video online to play it.
I can hear you really loud, and I will stop this public comment section if you continue to yell, and I will ask you to leave.
Well, I'm just saying you might want to check that out, that when you go to the video online, the volume is very different, and you have to speak loudly here in order to be able to be heard when somebody goes online to play that video. Now, that could be somebody here could make that change.
Let's move on to your public comment because your time is starting to run here.
Okay. So when you use the term professional in front of your name or people think you are professionals, you get a shortcut to their trust. I have been looking in the public documents at plats, at plans, things like that, and I have been seeing where no seal has been placed on those documents. No signature and no seal. I've seen other documents where the date is obfuscated. I have asked others to look at those, and they have agreed with me that the date looks to be obfuscated. I would encourage you to scrutinize those documents to make sure that seals are applied to them. And if they are not, that they are clearly marked preliminary, not for construction, recording purposes, or implementation. They should be clearly marked. A watermark would be the best thing, because what I have seen from the City of Lee Summit is that they are using preliminary documents that do not have watermarks, that do not have that information on them, and they are using those documents to deceive landowners into thinking they don't own what they own. They cut out a piece of that plat, of that plan, of that survey. They draw colored boxes on it, and then they send it to the landowner and say, take your fence out or we're going to take it out for you because here's the documentation that says you don't own that. Then you go looking for that document and you find that it's a surveyor's document, that the surveyor did not put preliminary on it, he didn't mark it, he didn't even seal it. But lo and behold, the city is using it. And they're using it to deceive landowners.
Thank you for your public
You three
comments.
know about
Your
it.
3
I looked
minutes-
you up.
Your 3 minutes are up. We will pass this on to staff for review. Any other public comments here tonight? None, so we will move on to our consent agenda items. They contain 3 items. Items A, approval of the April 11th Planning Commission Action Report. Application PL 2023328, final plat, the Falls of Winterset Valley, second plat, lots 1520 through 1532, tract C through E, Engineering Solutions applicant. And application PL 2023-354, sign application, Elevate Skin and Brow, 110 Southwest 2nd Street, Ellen Rogers applicant. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I get a vote on the approval of the consent agenda?
Mark Kitchens,
Yes.
Sherry Frazier,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jonah Ford,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski,
Yes.
Randy Benbrook.
Yes.
Consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to our first public hearing is item A, and we will open up application PL 2024-038, preliminary development plan, MCC Longview Automotive Institute, 500 Southwest Longview Road, DLR Group Architects applicant. Anyone wishing to provide testimony or speak on behalf of this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Thank you. The applicant has a presentation for us. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Ishita Banerjee on behalf of DLR Group, 7290 West 33rd Street, 133rd Street, Overland Park, Kansas, 66213. Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Here to present the Automotive Institute at the Longview Community College campus for MCC. We are the architects of record on the project, and we have a full consultant team, some in-house as well as some out of, hired out as consultants. Our civil engineering team is Talifera Brown, and our AV and IT security is from Branch Pattern. Let me know if you can hear me okay. So essentially, MCC has hired, they requested an RFP for a new and addition to their existing high technology building for to grow their automotive institute on campus at the Longview Community College. This is our, we have been working on this project since last year, March, and the project has been, has really high goals. from the client's perspective. Essentially, they have defined that the project needs to be an institution from in the region, like a very quality automotive institute in the region, and they have set those goals for the architectural team from day one. They want to provide the best education possible within the community, and this is truly an effort to develop the workforce gap that they have seen and through their surveys throughout the community. So again, the owner and primary client is Metropolitan Community College. Our primary contact is through the facilities team, where Jeff Ullman and Clint Johnson is our primary contact. Jeff Ullman is present in person, as well as Dr. Kreider, as well Kim Dexter is also present in person to answer any questions on behalf of MCC. I'm Ishita Banerjee, representing DLR Group here as the architect of record, and also my seal is on the drawings. So that's what I hold responsibility for this project in terms of being a professional to the project. Macon Gordon Construction has been hired by the client to deliver the project in terms of construction and the full project delivery. Again, this project is on MCC campus. There is already an existing building, and we were assigned with a task of not only like renovate the existing building as they are growing out of space, but also add to the building based on their needs. Again, as I said, like there were a lot of guiding principles that were shared with us as part of the project goals. One of them is like trying to create a destination on campus. Many of their existing buildings are very, they're open to every student on campus, but don't have quite the public facing. So this building wanted to have kind of the vocabulary where people can easily access and want to access. Like the building site is a little bit, like even though it's on the campus, but it's on the south end of the far end of the campus, and that's where it kind of if you are not a student in the building, nobody really approaches the building. However, the goal was set like that we can define this building in a way that it becomes the destination on campus and brings more vibrancy to the campus. Again, the goal was to become the regional automotive institute. The programs that are being offered in this space are not offered on either side of state line in any other institute, like all together in the same building. So that was a goal. They definitely want to be accessible to all the learners. Collaboration spaces within the building, if we can provide, should be used by the whole of campus. All students should have access to those collaboration spaces. They wanted the exposure to all the pathways within the building, making sure that every student has opportunity to understand and know what is going on in the rest of the building. Again, they highlight student work on display. That's an MCC goal. Very well organized, natural, light, and clean spaces, professional spaces for these students who get hired by the workforce quickly. They want to provide those professional spaces, this learning environment as well. Again, as I said, as you can see, the rest of the campus is quite dense. The existing high technology building sits on the further end of the campus, and the goal was to bring it a little further closer to the rest of the campus, and as well as make it more approachable, accessible, and essentially students want to hang in there kind of space. As we developed the site, there were a few grading challenges, and so we were kind of stuck with only on the east side of the existing building. The building is an automotive institute. With all the grade changes, it was not possible to look at other locations on campus because we wanted a flat level floor surface for the cars to be moved in and out. The floor plan is very simplistic. This is the existing footprint of the building, of the existing building, and the new construction goes right in front of it on the east side, and the building is connected, the new and the old is connected through a pass-through or a bridge on the second floor, but pass-through on the first floor, which also functions as a tool storage for between the two buildings. On the second floor, it's again very simplistic, mainly some professional space for the industry partners, as well as collaboration space throughout the second floor, which connects to the other end of the existing building where we have the faculty spaces and the staff spaces. This was very intentional, as this bridge essentially provides views into all of the programs. On this side, it's the Automotive Institute on the new end, and on the existing side, their existing automotive space is becoming diesel, and they already have collision on campus, and we are trying to provide some views into all three programs. Material-wise, this is a very simple palette, considering the building is existing. Part of the building is existing, and they already have metal panels on the building. So this is a very simple palette. It was an extension of those metal panels, and the same material, same brick on campus that is going to be used in certain parts of the building. Again, the building wanted to look a little different than what is existing on their site. The idea from the architectural team was to make it look very professional and almost like a car dealership kind of approach. So that's how we approach the building facade. We have metal panels, and I will pull up the rendering in a bit, but essentially we have metal panels on the dark and vibrant color sides, and the rest is all brick on the east facade so that it matches, it faces the existing campus, that it can match that campus. On the sides, they are not necessarily as public, so they have primarily metal panels and glazing on either side, on the south and north side. This is the elevation in between the buildings. So this is very much not visible on the public facade. It's only for the students to, there is I can pull up the plan again, there is a little bit of alleyway in between the two buildings where the students can hang out or have some study space or something like that. And that's, MCC has always expressed that interest, and they will provide furniture for the same. This is the primary facade. It's on the east side, and this is the public view. Again, you can see on the second floor, that's where the professional space is with the industry partners. At the entry level, it's primarily glass, and there are offices, as well as you walk into the space there, you will see into the automotive spaces, the big automotive lab, which we wanted to highlight as part of the project. Large MCC logo and all the signages as it matches the lettering they already have on campus. As you enter the building, the lobby space is where it's more of a display space, almost like a car dealership, where they can bring out some other cars that they want to showcase, or even student projects that they want to showcase. And as you walk in, the entrance has views into the automotive space, which will showcase what the program is all about. These are automotive bays, which we have, currently they have about 12 bays as part of the program, and we have kind of grown this program by up to 24 bays, and then MCC also bought an alternate, which grows this bays to almost 28 number bays, which it grows the program by twice. These are simple classrooms, and again, just very simplistic classroom vocabulary based on what MCC has on the rest of the campus. This is the collision space, which is getting a full renovation. They have the existing collision space, but the collision space is not necessarily most functional for them as of now, as it stands now. So we are renovating the full collision space and providing the space for them, hopefully providing the space for them that will not only grow their program, but also help them to function better in terms of delivering the curriculum to their students. And the existing automotive space, which they currently have, is going to become the new program, completely new, which doesn't exist as of now, is a diesel program that they're bringing on campus. Timeline-wise, as I said, we started last year, end of March, early April. We had a lot of not only student participation, faculty discussions throughout the programming effort to hone into the program, what exactly this addition should look like, how big the addition should be. The existing square footage they have is about 28,000 square feet, and we are adding about 36,000 square foot to the building. So it's almost doubles the square footage for them. We went through different phases: schematic design, design development, and construction documents, as well as bidding. So project is bid and is ready to start construction, but we are awaiting permitting for the project. Construction schedule is like when we can start, like we haven't started yet, and we got a permit, partial permit just for the renovation scope. So we are going to proceed with that, and then the rest of the construction will proceed after we get the full permitting. Again, this is what I explained, like the permitting for just for the partial renovation scope, as we have to proceed with the renovation through the summer when the school is not in session. That's what we are doing for the summer, and then we will await for full permit, hopefully by end of July to mid-August. That's when we can get. We are next steps wise, we have a city council hearing next month, and then hopefully for final development plan process on 6/11. I would really thank you, all of you, for listening to the project, and thank you to the staff because they have really helped us a lot throughout the process and navigating us, helping us to navigate through the PDB process. Again, if you have any questions, we have MCC team, we have our civil engineer. Any questions that needs to be brought in, we can respond, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Taking this one, or Hector, you're taking it?
Yeah, if you there, yeah. Good afternoon. Hector Soto Jr., Senior Planner. I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of Exhibits 1 through 14.
Exhibits 1 through 14 noted and entered into the record.
So as the applicant has stated, we are here before you to consider a preliminary development plan for the MCC Longview Automotive Institute. As has been touched on before, the project site is located at the far southwestern corner of the 101-acre campus. The existing facility sits about a quarter mile due west of Longview Road, behind the Longview Chapel that you see here. The area is zoned R1 single family and does sit within the Longview Activity Center area as identified in the Ignite Comprehensive Plan. So the existing facility here that you see grayed out to the west of the proposed building is about 25,000 square feet in size. The proposed building, when all said and done, will be at about, well, it'll end up totaling about 67,000 square feet. So it'll be an additional 30, well, it does list 3,600. When you throw in some additional mezzanine space, that's what actually gets you up from what you see here from the footprint square footage of 61 up to 67. So there'll be about 6,000 or so square feet of mezzanine level space here that you see made up of some of these classrooms. The building will be two-story, just under 40 feet in height. I'll back up a little bit. So this application, the scope of this application is primarily the architectural aspect of it. From a setback standpoint, from a building size standpoint, FAR, all of those considerations, the proposed development meets all UDO requirements, except that it does have a significant amount of, it's primarily all a metal building. And as you're well aware, our current ordinance as written requires Planning Commission City Council consideration of approval of the use of metal as more than an incidental material. And staff is currently charting out a process by which we would bring this forward as a future UDO amendment, and we're looking at possibly the summer of this year to address the increased use of metal to make it more of an approved material that would exempt, well, not exempt, that would otherwise perhaps allow this type of application to just go forward administratively rather than bring it before the Planning Commission City Council. So some of these renderings you've already seen. So we're primarily dealing with a metal building, metal glass. There is a little bit of brick, face brick that you do see along the base of which would be the northern, well, in this case, it's the eastern facade, the front of the building. And then as it wraps around, there's a portion of it on the north facade that would also use brick. So brick on the east and north facades amount to about 6% and 4% usage of those facades respectively, and with, again, the rest of it being the glass and architectural metal panel systems. This gives you a more direct view. So everything down here on this east facade is face brick. Everything else, architectural metal panels and glass. So as I mentioned, the use of metal as a primary building material does require planning commission consideration as well as city council. As you're well aware, especially with institutional uses like schools and churches, and then just general automotive related uses, just the proliferation of metal paneling systems as the primary material has increased. So, in this case, with the graphic that you see here, the architecture itself and the use of metal lends itself very much toward that architectural, or rather that automotive and technological types of uses that you would see. We have some similar types of use of materials in the MCC or the MIC campus and other technology-related institutions that we have throughout the city. So with that, staff has a comfort level of recommending approval of the use of metal material panels as shown on the elevations and depicted on the preliminary development plan dated March 22nd, 2024. So I'll yield any questions you may have.
Thank you, Hector. Do we have any questions, comments from the public on this specific application? Question, just a quick question before we start off with everybody. Hector, do you know what % makeup, or maybe the applicant knows the building is metal? 60%, 50%?
Like excluding the glass, it will be about 72%.
70%, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll save you some steps. Don't run off from there. We'll start with questions.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my first question, just to divvy in there, is actually going to be for staff real quick. I know that R1 is zoned for schooling, but this is an industrial capability within an R1. Just for my own edification, is that normally allowed, or is this a new thing we need to take a look at some point?
Schools, institutional uses like schools are allowed in basically every zoning district. So with it being an educational institution, it just rolls into the school, which is a permitted use by right under residential zoning, including R1.
Okay, even for industrial purposes and schooling?
Yes, it is.
Apparently so, right?
Yes, it is accessory to part of the curriculum, the educational curriculum of that institution.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Hector. Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you so much. Great building. Looks fantastic. I do have a couple questions for you. The debris for construction, where is that moving out in the roadmap? How are we moving any of the debris off-site that we're digging up?
Will be handled by the construction team, and I don't have them, but essentially McCon Garden is a very renowned construction team within the area, so hopefully they will be able to guide the debris somewhere.
I understand. Just a community thing. My best guess is that's going out through Longview Road and everything, and that your timetable had you in next couple of years building such a beautiful facility. It should take that long, right? But at Christmas time around here, that road gets pretty busy with Christmas in the Park right around the corner. And if we have construction going up and down that actually leads to issues there. But I think me just mentioning that now, I think we'll figure something out, just as long as that's what the construction is looking at. And I'm sure whoever won that contract has that in mind. And this goes back to the R1 question, but it's for the applicant, not Hector. With R1, I kind of have a little bit of a thing with an industrial capability in an R1 area, even though this is pretty far away from any housing that's over there. But I still want to make sure we have proper chemical storage on site for oil and hazmat? I know the EPA has a lot of requirements on that for this.
There is not very much chemical storage beyond like regular automotive shop kind of requirements. Overall, like any kind of drainage or anything is going through a grease trap, we are trying to avoid it letting it into the storms. So we have added another grease trap on or grease interceptor on site to avoid that. But there is not very much hazardous material as part of the program as of now that is being stored on campus.
Excellent. You knew what I was going to ask. What size is that oil trap that you have there? Big, right?
It's bigger than what they have right now, so it's a
If they
supplemental.
passed you, it's got to be the standard too, so we're all good.
It is a full size. I do not know the size off the top of my head.
Very
But
cool.
essentially, it is bigger than what they have on campus for the particular building, existing building. And so because we are adding larger square footage, we have added the new
Great.
grease interceptor.
No hazardous material recycling over there? No oil refining or anything
No,
like that from the campus? Okay, so we'll be trucking that in and out as well, then that's what that means.
Like, unless any one of you want to speak, but my understanding is like all the oil and gas that is being stored is only for like making sure that the vehicle is running just while they are teaching to the students, but nothing more than that. None of these cars go off campus or they are just for student education only, making sure that the students have access to those cars to learn the cars.
Great. Any other problem I would have past that with the chemicals, obviously, is going to be MCC's purview and not that of the construction team, which we keep our focus on when we go over these here. So thank you so much. I think it's a beautiful project. I'll have some comments later on, but thank you. Mr. Chair.
No.
Crafton, any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and thank you for bringing this application forward to the Planning Commission. I was curious, I mean, you're doubling the size of this program, and I am excited, honestly. We need more automotive technicians in the community, and so unfortunately, I've had the pleasure of working with some. They're very nice young people, so hopefully you'll be training more of them. But the question I have is, you're doubling the size of the program, so I'm guessing you're going to double the size of students that you have there. It doesn't look like you're adding much student parking. I did notice that you're adding a walkway to the other parking lot on the west side edge of the project. And so I'm just curious, what kind of anticipated need, because it looks like to the south of the building is where you're storing probably some of your automobiles and stuff that you'll be using in the program. It looks like students are parking in what I would see as a limited space, and so it doesn't look like you're adding much student parking.
Yeah, so the access for students to park will be at the existing parking lots, and we worked with the faculty and the staff. The students don't necessarily park here either. They are primarily only for the faculty and the staff. This is on this side, that's mainly for the vehicles to be stored while they are not being worked at. The existing parking is adequate to support the growth in students, and that is truly on MCC. If they decide that they need further parking, they can grow their parking.
So you guys have analyzed the current parking you have, and you don't feel like, I mean, I've seen those lots pretty full, so during the day, and so, I mean, I'm guessing you did a study on it?
Program is both shifts, both morning and evening shifts.
Gotcha.
So there will be a lot of students in the evening shifts when the parking lot is not in use.
Well, I appreciate you having the foresight for the program and being so thoughtful about it. I think it'll be a lovely addition to the work you guys are doing over there, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenna Ford.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to piggyback after Commissioner Trafton's question or thought on the sidewalk. So if you mind stepping back up, please. So I do see that you're trying to connect the existing parking lot to the new addition. Couple questions. What are the hours of operations, i.e., are people going to be able to access it 24/7?
not a 24/7 building, but it's like it starts at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night.
And I see these little boxes along the sidewalk. Are those lights?
Yes, those are lights to essentially light the sidewalk. There is minimum foot candle needed, making sure those are accessible for the students.
Okay.
And making it safe for the students.
And then I also see you've got an underground detention basin.
The underground detention basin is being actually reworked right now, and we will be submitted as part of the FDP submittal. It's going to be a surface detention, and I have the civil engineer to walk you through if you have further questions.
No questions, but just it said underground detention, now it's surface detention?
It was underground detention, but when we submitted it for permitting the PDP, for the PDP application, that comment came up that it's preferred to have a surface detention because underground detentions are harder to manage and if they're harder to maintain essentially. So we are making it a surface detention, which they already have on campus. They already have one surface detention on campus, and that was a planning comment that we are trying to address, and now it's becoming a surface detention as part of the FDP application process.
Okay, and so that surface detention is really close to what you're considering as the outdoor lounge area for students? No? Okay.
The surface detention, if you can see the screen, will be somewhere around here, and the grade actually drops very steeply down there, and that's where we are making use of that grade drop to detain the water.
So it's not in the original location either?
No.
Okay, thank you, that's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuzinski.
No additional questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Benbrook.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Kitchens going on the zoning. I'm going to dig into a little bit more of that. While I understand this fits the zoning, I'm a little concerned about the use. Typically, we see these service centers as an H1, H2 usage, which limits automotive chemicals such as oil and gas, depending on the size. So my question is, A, what exactly is going to happen here? Is it body and paint? Is it service? Is it major automotive repair? Is it all of the above? What are we looking at use-wise?
You can give us your name and address so we get you on the record.
Sure. My name is Ryan Kreider. I live at 2602 Northeast First Terrace in Blue Springs, and I am Vice President of Instruction and Student Services at the MCC Longview campus. Speaking to your question, the type of programming that currently occurs in the building, and then I'll talk a little bit about future plans for programming in the building that will leverage the project itself and allow us to get on board with some additional programming. Right now we have full AAS degrees and certificate degrees in maintenance and light repair, automotive service technician, in addition to cohort training programs with Ford and General Motors. So that's the base of our current programming. We have recently, within the past couple of years, also brought collision into the building. We do have a collision applied science degree as well. Within that program, there is welding. We have a small welding shop, and we do have a paint booth and a mixing room. So there is some painting that occurs within the facility as well, in addition to some general repair of what I would call light collision applications. As part of this construction project, as Ashita was walking you through the uses of the building going forward, one portion of that building will be used to house a new diesel technology program, which will deal with light and heavy diesel maintenance and repair, basically an analog to what we do on the general automotive side, except with diesel as well in this case.
Okay. Appreciate that. So I noticed you had, 24 bays, something of that nature. I'm assuming you're going to be doing, since you mentioned service, you're going to be doing oil changes, things of that nature. So I know this is preliminary, so I'm not going to get in the weeds too much, but when this comes back, I would like to see in the final development plan at least highlighted somewhere where your storage tanks are going to be, how you're going to get oil in and out of the facility, things of that nature. I would also like at least some noting as to where what is going to be H1 and H2, since this is a college campus and we're kind of mixing uses here, which hazardous in an R1. Just some boxes.
Sure.
nothing too detailed. And then the other thing, I wanted to dig into the architectural metal panel. I know this is preliminary. You have a product in mind as far as the metal panels? Okay.
Product will be by the PEMB manufacturer, and essentially it will be an insulated metal panel on both sides, like we have metal.
Okay. And you said you have samples? Can we see?
I do have samples.
Can we see them?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Is it a 2-inch insulation?
3.5 inch.
3.5. We know what gauge?
I don't know the gauge, but that's the sample.
We'll pass those down, let the other commissioners look at. Okay, sandwich panel, decent gauge typically. I like to hear that. Is there any, looking at the use of this building, knowing how these facilities typically work, knowing that you got young people in there working on them, the durability comes into concern. Why metal panel instead of maybe a precast panel or something like that? Was there any direction given why you went with an insulated metal panel instead of something a little more durable?
First of all, the existing building is metal panel, and that has been on campus since 60s, so durability has been proven, I would say. On the other hand, the metal panel kind of lended the right vocabulary for the appearance of the building, that we wanted to look like more like an automotive dealership. So that's why that material
More of
was
an
chosen.
aesthetics, not so much as a building durability
Right.
situation. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think a little bit of talk, Hector, and you could probably, talk of the automotive repair and that kind of thing. Is there already a special use permit in place for these facilities?
No, it's a school, so it's not intended as a commercial operation. So it is just, again, part of the curriculum of that educational institution, so one is not required.
Not required, okay. I don't have anything else from the commission while we're in the public hearing, or we can close the public hearing and open up for comments or questions. Commissioner Kitchens, we will close the public hearing and move on to comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I love the facility. I think that making it look like a dealership is actually a stroke of genius. This is where we're aiming those careers at. I think making it as like the work environment as possible is a great idea. I'm not a fan that that we don't have something in place for the zoning, to be quite honest and quite frank. Thank you, by the way. I would like to see something maybe, and this will only get more important as we move along and we get several different campuses with different programs in the area. I want them here. I think it's great for the area, but we might have to address this as a planning commission, as a zoning thing. Because if we start to get crowded on city campuses and things like that, and we're doing industrial and vocational technology there, which can be quite loud and have many hazardous materials, which I think they plan wonderfully for. I don't think I have a problem with this one per se, but this is definitely a future thing for us to look at. So I'll be voting yes tonight on this beautiful project. I'd like to thank MCC for staying with us and having a wonderful campus out there in Longview. Absolutely adore it. So I will be voting yes tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier?
Be abstaining at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovelace?
David, I had a question for you as far as procedurally. Typically, I would see something like this and we would make a motion to recommend approval, but on this one, our packet says about making a motion for a second reading of the application. And I just was a little bit confused because it sounds like this is an architectural issue, exactly what the motion should be.
Right. You are making a recommendation, so I'm not sure what part of the packet you're looking at, but I think your motion would be the standard recommendation on the application.
Okay.
And that second reading, that's probably maybe cut and paste from language that's used in a council packet. So when the ordinance goes on to the city council, there's a motion to move to second reading, then a motion to adopt, and that may be what happened in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Garth, anything?
I just wanted to say that I really like this project. I think it's a nice-looking building, and I think it's really nice to see educational institutions put money and resources into these newer buildings. I think it makes students excited to have a new learning space. I have a daughter who is going to be a senior next year, and we've been looking at different schools, and I do notice a difference when the learning environment looks like it's newer and well-maintained and exciting to be there. So I'm glad that you guys are doing this.
Thank you. Commissioner Trafton.
Thank you, Chair. I too am excited about this building and project and the fact that you're doubling the size, and I love that it's going to look like a car dealership, and I mean, it's going to be a gem for the campus to have. You know, my only concern remains, I do believe they need more parking, and it would have been nice to see like a third row added or parking added closer to the building. I do like the option of adding a sidewalk to make it closer for students to get there, so I appreciate the effort, and I guess you guys will continue to evaluate whether or not you need to add a third row of parking out that way or extend, but I'm glad to see that you're adding buildings. So good luck to you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jana Ford.
Chair, I'm going to echo a lot of the accolades about how nice this building looks, and it's going to be a great addition. Thank you.
Commissioner Tuzinski.
Mr. Chairman, I just also would like to say I really like to see the investment in the trades and another opportunity for students that don't want to go the four-year college route but do want to do something. It's such an important piece of a community is to have young people that want to get involved in doing repairs, because these are so needed by everyone. So I think it's a great looking building. I think it fits the aesthetic of what you're wanting to do. And yeah, I look forward to accepting this too. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Benbrook.
Yes, thank you. Love the fact you're bringing the diesel program in. Fantastic. I think this is going to be a great project for the community. Glad to see alternative routes to career paths. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. To go along with all my fellow commissioners, this is awesome. I think it's great to get the trade programs involved in a much needed industry. And I really appreciate you guys stay invested in our community. Commissioner Lovelace, would you like to lead us in a motion, please?
Yes, Chair. I would move to recommend for approval application PL 2024-038 Preliminary Development Plan, MCC Longview Automotive Institute, 500 Southwest Longview Road, DLR Group Architects applicant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Chair, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote on this application?
Art Kitchens,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jana Ford,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski,
Yes.
Randy Benbrook.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval. Thank you, guys. We will move on to item B in our public hearing, and we will open up application PL 2024-060, special use permit for equipment rental facility 1100 Southeast Hamlin Road, McAdams applicant. Anyone wishing to provide testimony or speak on behalf of this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation for us? Come on up and. You're all set up. If you give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Rick Vino with John R. McAdams Company, 621 Hillsborough Street, Raleigh, North Carolina. That's Suite 500 as well, 27613. We are the engineer for H&E equipment for majority of their work right now. This particular property at 1100 Southeast Hamlin Road, as you see on the screen, overall view, given its location. They are looking to move into this on a lease basis. It's not a purchase. And it's approximately 4.72 acres. It's currently developed, current development and zoning for industrial use under PI, which matches for the H&E equipment rental service. There's adequate parking. There's existing concrete aggregate for the equipment yard and security fence with gates. So there's no improvements proposed at this time for any reason for this business to be able to move in without any upfits. Just going in a little bit closer, give a little bit more context to this property and the surrounding uses as well. You see Home Depot off to the right hand of the screen, east of this, as well as Sutton Trucking surrounding two sides of this property as well. Similar uses on the south, the west, and northwest of our property. And jumped more than I wanted to go there. Here you can see the concrete around the existing building and the equipment yard or current equipment storage yard stretching mostly the back half of the property and the southern side. We've had Geotech come in, test the concrete, test the aggregate, and it has tested out to be of an adequate section, approximately 7 inches. They punched about seven holes back there. It is an MDOT gravel from their evaluation, so they believe it'd be just fine for the equipment yard stability. There was no soft spots observed. Grading allowed water to flow off, so the site is pretty well perfect. Just move in and use as is. And then again, the business overall, with everything around it, is, I'm going to say, fairly compatible, if not completely compatible with the existing uses around it. Mainly, I'm here for questions because we have no proposed improvements. So it's really the special use permit is for the use to move into here. There's currently, as you see, a similar level of industrial use going on at the location now. It's just not rental equipment. In addition to this SUP, we will also have 3 modification requests. One is going to be for setback of 30 feet. And as you can see, the existing development does not observe that setback of 30 feet for the equipment storage area. Another one is for the location of the fence to be forward of the building, down at the southeast corner, where you see some red trailers or trucks under some trees. That area is fenced in as well. If you come back a little bit, you'll see it turns back into the building. There's a gate right there to secure the back area. And the third modification is for the gravel to be allowed as an existing condition for the equipment yard. With that, I'd really like to turn it over to staff with their presentation and mainly be here to answer questions as needed.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Hector's doing all the heavy lifting tonight.
Yeah, you'll get one break from me through the course of this night, but yeah. I'm Hector Soto Jr., Senior Planner. I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 14.
Exhibits 1 through 14 noted and entered into the record.
So the subject facility sits due west of Home Depot that you see here in this rose color labeled PMix. So we are looking at just under a 5-acre site, fully developed. Fully developed. Obviously, there's a gravel yard around the facility, meaning there is an existing building on the facility. There is a paved parking lot for employees, customers, but surrounding the facility to the west and to the south is a gravel area. So here you see what that the comprehensive plan does show this general area as being more of a mixed-use type of land use categorization, but the property as it currently sits is zoned industrial. So the image here below you shows, better depicts the limits of the existing Portland cement concrete apron and paved surfaces around the building itself. So to the north, to the immediate northwest and to the south, what you see here in this more solid gray color, is existing Portland cement concrete surface. Everywhere else that you see here, kind of with this, as you can see the legend to denote that there is a gravel surface area that makes up most of the western half of the building, or the site, and the southern perimeter, particularly due south of the building and a little bit to the southeast, closer to Hamblin Road. So the application before you here is to consider not all that different, actually pretty much exactly how in the past year and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that, an application came before you for Herc Rentals about half a mile to the southeast as the crow flies. Similarly situated property, industrial zoning, an existing office warehouse type of building on it, paved surface, Portland cement and/or asphalt surface around the immediate building, but the majority of the site, particularly to the back, on the back side, west side of the building, we had existing gravel fenced areas that historically had been used as laydown areas and such for previous users of the facility. Now, fast forward to the application we had before you now. The site is subject to current UDO standards, and some of the conditions in effect for heavy equipment rental facilities have 3 conditions that the applicant had alluded to. One as it relates to paved surface, one as it relates to fencing, and one as it relates to minimum setbacks from property lines. So to touch on the first one, on these setbacks, here are some of these dashed lines that you see, and let me use this. So here you can see some of the setback lines that are required, that are standard for principal buildings on industrial zone property. So the minimum setbacks for a principal building are 10-foot setbacks from the north and to the south, and then a 20-foot setback from the rear. So you can see here overlaid, you've got these dashed lines that depict those setbacks. The UDO requirement as a condition states that for heavy equipment rental facilities, there has to be a minimum, the greater of 30-foot setback or whatever the zoning standard is. So here we have 20, an additional 10 would bring that line somewhere out here. And as you can see underneath that image, the gravel surface extends right up to the property line itself. And historically, buildings, or rather vehicles, have been stored right up to those 0 lot lines that you do see that surround the buildings to the south and to the west. So the applicant, similar to the Herc rental facility, is asking no more than to continue the use of the existing conditions that you see there on the site. Similar types of requests have been made, like I said, to Herc rental with Bledsoe, with Sunbelt Rentals, and we have not had any concerns at the staff level or any complaints for allowing those setbacks in those situations. And again, historically, what you have seen on this property is setback of materials and equipment being right up to the fence itself. So they're just asking for a continuation of an existing condition. Second condition has to do with the fact that for equipment rentals, it does state that there should be no fencing forward of the building. So here you see the easternmost limit of the building, and you do have, as the applicant alluded to, this southeast corner where you do have a portion of it that does extend beyond the face. Again, it's an existing condition. Staff is supportive of continuing the use of what you already have on the site. And the third one being the paving of surface. So as part of this application, and the applicant referred to a geotechnical report, when looking at this facility, similar to other facilities that have long historically been using this gravel surface. We asked that a geotech study be done to demonstrate that the existing condition can support the loads imposed upon it by the type of use. And in this case, the geotechnical report was done and came back with some recommendations. And most of the recommendations were really more good practice type recommendations for long-term usage. It just recommended periodic regrading of the site just to maintain positive drainage away from the building and away from those seams where the gravel area meets the Portland cement area, so as to not to undermine the stability or the integrity of the gravel areas. So again, those were more good practice type of recommendations. What it was found is that the gravel that's in place there does provide a functional equivalent to what you would find if they did pave the surface in terms of being able to withhold the loads imposed upon it by the proposed use. Here is an image of that existing building. It's hard to see here, but it has long housed a construction contractor. Here's the calling out the limits of modification request for the setbacks and calling out where the property lines are and the boundaries of that gravel fencing or the gravel surface against the fence areas. So staff is supportive of the 3 recommended modifications and is also supportive of granting a 10-year special use permit, which would be consistent with special use permits on existing facilities that are not new construction. So with that, I'll yield to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Hector. Do we have any comments or input from the public on this application?
All documents. Matthew Schlisch did not seal the final plat that you all did the consent agenda on. And
Okay. Public, before we move to the commission. None. Commissioner Bimbrook, any questions for staff or the applicant?
Just to reiterate, Hector, there's been no complaints from any of the neighboring properties about them pushing equipment or the equipment storage gravel pad up to the fence line or property line?
We have no record of any complaint to that.
Thank you. That's all I had, Chair.
Commissioner Tazinski.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, were they wanting to relocate this fence all the way out to basically off the street right of way in the front side of the building? So would they take that from almost where your cursor is north and then tie back in and really have that whole parking lot be closed and fenced as part of it?
Are you asking if that's what they were proposing?
I think that's what they had mentioned that they were going to do, right?
I can ask the applicant to come up and clarify that. My understanding is that the fencing would stay as it currently sits, but if,
I'm sorry, maybe I misheard. I was under the impression that they.
No, the fencing will remain. We're not proposing any improvements to continue the ongoing use that's there now.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there's no improvements to reduce it or go in there and change it up to try to comply based on really, one, the context of the area and what's going on right now adjacent to it as well. It really matches even on the other side of the property as well. So it wasn't a big concern of an incompatible use up there for us at this time.
Well, will you be storing equipment, materials, propane, anything out in that parking lot that's adjacent to the street?
I would say possibly yes. If it's inside the secure fence area, then that is a very good possibility. Just like the adjacent property is parking trailers or equipment, whatever they may have. I don't know the full use of their business.
So I guess in the secure fence area, you said is not changing.
Correct.
But you're going to potentially store those pieces of equipment outside of the fence area in this parking
Oh,
lot?
no, inside the fence.
Well,
I'm
of
sorry, I
course.
misunderstood
I
your
expected
question.
inside, but I mean outside the fence.
out in
Yeah, out in that area.
Oh, no. I don't think there's any intention to do that. That'd be, again, security-wise,
Right.
things go disappearing from equipment really fast if it's not behind a fence.
Okay. Thank you.
That stuff ain't cheap, so,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jana Ford.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, do you mind stepping back to the podium? Sorry.
Don't wander too far till we get through
I want
here.
my exercise today.
Got to get your steps in. So I understand from the geotech report, they had mentioned that the gravel could withhold the potential weight of whatever various equipment you may have. Is there thoughts on logistics on maintaining or placing, let me rephrase, on locating certain vehicles in the gravel versus concrete based on the geotech report?
There's not. No, there's, I guess I'll take it a step further. Typically, gravel is a better wearing surface for equipment. A lot of this stuff has tracks. And what they find on the concrete, over time, it chews off the concrete and they end up having to cut out concrete and replace it going through the future, especially in front of the bay door. So when they are parking it out back, the gravel becomes definitely a better surface for tracked vehicles. They do have hard-wheeled vehicles, like you'd use on a factory floor. Those would all stay on the concrete, and so they will have likely some of that area or majority of that area, if they have a larger hard-wheeled fleet here, would be kept on the concrete, and that's the tracked vehicles more on the gravel.
Okay. And there are plans to do the regrading periodically to ensure that it can support the weight of all those equipment?
So the regrading would be for, basically the recommendations for gravel. If you were to install it today, the geotech would say, we recommend you install it on a 2% slope for adequate drainage so you don't end up with any ponding water. But they do maintain it. I do have some pictures actually as well. I'll get back to you. I did actually bring some pictures. So this is a little bit better view of the facility, bird's eye view, a few different angles. And then here's some existing facilities that they have. They are a national company, and this is how they maintain their gravel areas. So it is in their best interest to maintain these gravel areas because they actually run their equipment through wash bays to keep it clean and presentable, as well as to be able to service it properly too. So it's just representational of how they maintain it. If they don't maintain it, it will end up with low points getting dug out, pond up water, and then they'll have more issues. They'll soften up, and then it takes a whole lot more to fix it at that point. So they keep up with it for those reasons. But the weight support, geotech basically made the observations that they didn't see any soft spots or anything like that, anything that represented where there was an issue somewhere around there. I don't know the basis of how they locate their borings on the property. I leave that to them because they're the experts. But the recommendations, I guess, there was observations in there of it has adequate slope for drainage. It doesn't appear there's any ponding. And that the gravel was of MDOT type gravel that gets used for aggregate surface parking or equipment yards, if you want to say. And then the recommendations would be more geared towards, as staff had said, to improvements in the future, or as you maintain this surface, what are you looking to try to achieve by maintaining it? What's the end goal or the optimal goal of your aggregate to perform best?
That was very comprehensive. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's all, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Trafton.
Yeah, my question is for staff. I noticed in your presentation you mentioned modification approval of the UDO standard of the 30-foot setback in several instances. And I guess my question is, if that's a practice that we're doing, is that being considered or looked at? If the standard practice is 20 feet, is there a reason to keep it 30 in the UDO?
So the more recent examples that I cited are those for, they've not necessarily been for new construction. So the Herc rental was a repurposing of an existing facility. This one is as well. The Sunbelt rental, that one did have, that was actually repurposing as well. On new construction, we really haven't had any new construction type of facility like this. If it did come forward, they would have the ability to meet those setbacks. So the expectation would be that they would meet them. But in these particular cases, we're talking about facilities where the standards didn't require that lay down areas and any gravel and paving maintain any significant setback. If, you can see here, it allowed 0 setback. So on some of these repurposed facilities, we're comfortable granting the modification because it's just a continuing use of facilities that have been in existence for 20, 30 plus years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm curious the rationale for a 30-foot setback if we're commonly using 20 and sometimes even, we're making a modification, but we know the gravel's to 0. So most likely it'll be used to 0. I don't have an issue with it per se because it butts a property that is the same use. So like if it was residential or something, it may be a bigger issue, but in this case it's not. I'm just curious, if the rationale for 10 extra feet of a setback on property when we know they could use the 10 feet. In this case, they have a lot of storage space back there. So I don't know that it's necessary that we give them but it is the way it's practiced now, and I understand, and I don't really have a problem with it, honestly, but I'm just curious as to why does the research support a 30-foot setback on the line when? Thoughts?
I could definitely see I could see your point as to perhaps 30 might be kind of a generous setback. In some cases, what you would typically see might be more of you alluded to, and the rear setback requirement for industrial is more 20, which if you do have perhaps I won't say necessarily incompatible, but a little bit, if there's a use that's different enough where that 20-foot separation would allow for some landscaping, some fencing to provide some sort of a buffer. But yeah, to your point here, you have a similar type of use. It's a trucking company actually that wraps around the west and to the south. So I could see where in that case it does make sense. But in general, I could see where we could reduce that 30 to something more reasonable, like at perhaps the 20, to still allow for the possibility of some landscaping.
Yeah, I could see where we'd want a 30-foot setback if there was a different use behind that property, and then wouldn't we be able to say at that point in time, we're gonna require a 30-foot setback, or if the UDO was 20 and we felt like we needed a 30-foot buffer for landscaping or burns or whatever, so I don't know. I guess it's one or the other, right? You're either just depending on the use of the property. And so I can see in some instances where a 30-foot setback would be ideal because you'd want to burn and you want landscaping, and we've actually required that in some projects. And so, but I know in some situations we've required more than what is required in the UDO because we feel like it's needed. And I don't believe it is in this case. But anyway, you've answered my question, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Arth.
No questions.
Commissioner Lovelace.
Question for Hector. When we were dealing with Herc, wasn't there a lot of discussion about the fence and specifically whether the fence was opaque or not? Am I remembering that application correct?
That was a chain link fence. There was an existing chain link
It was
fence on that
existing,
one.
but I think it had something in there that was going to kind of shield the surrounding businesses from, the disarray that is a laydown yard, for something like that. And so where all that equipment's stored. And I know that was, I believe that was something we discussed a bunch. Has that been discussed here as far as being a potential requirement?
No, the Herc one, that one it's bordered by the bus barn to the north, and it has like Rue, or at least used to be Ruco to the west. So that was in the middle of industrial area. I know closer to some Belt Rentals is a little bit different in that I believe they have vinyl. Is that correct?
It was something.
That
It was
a little
something
bit
along
different,
those.
right.
Yeah, and we were talking about continuing that on through, and
Right.
and I think that might have actually been a condition of the approval on that one.
Yeah,
I think you're correct. I think we did have a discussion about the fence and it being opaque and how that was part of, I think it was part of the requirements.
That one, I don't recall if that was made an actual requirement. There might have been discussion, I just don't recall. But they They continue to use it. We'll be using that chain link fence, from my recollection of it.
I thought yeah, I can look it up. I think it might have been a requirement of that approval.
Yeah, we can look that up.
Commissioner Loveless, you good? Commissioner Frazier? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kitchens?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the applicant, real quick for you. Would you guys be opposed to putting vinyl fencing up here as a condition of the SUP?
I don't think I could say completely no on that. I mean, one of my concerns right away is an existing fence and getting all that stuff through an existing fence. It's not an easy job to start with a new fence, I do know that. It is something that they've used before at other locations where there was a required screen in other jurisdictions. I would say, I guess in the situation here, from my experience, I would think it would be, an unnecessary screen to screen a similar use to the west and the south is really the biggest infringement on that 30 feet. To the north, we have a large grass strip there, and
Yeah, I'm not worried about the 30 feet or the division. It's more of a cosmetic image. As we're moving through there, that area is getting developed up pretty quickly. We see commercial, I mean, Home Depot's right there. I'm not 100% for or against it. I just want to know what your temperature was if we decided that we were going to put that on the SUP, because that's part of the portion of having an SUP. Is to say, hey, if you guys want to do this, there's going to be a little bit of a condition on you. I do appreciate the new tenant there. I think it'll be great. My big question for y'all is, how about on the front with that vinyl fencing? Or do you want to see that yard from the front?
and I guess identifying the front, would you?
The road front there for
This
commercial
section right here?
traffic. Because I can understand if you
Yeah.
want people to be able to see, hey, we've got cherry pickers, we've got skid loaders and everything in the back.
I think that's something that could be accepted by the owner. I would, I guess I'd also like to point out too that this is, I guess sometimes I think of construction equipment, what goes along with it may be storage of materials, but that's
Yeah.
definitely one thing I want to be clear, there's not a storage materials, this is
I'm not
equipment.
worried about
Okay.
that either. Wasn't my
All right.
question at all, but I appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you to the applicant for bringing this up and having a business in Lee Summit. We love it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Hector, I had two questions, actually one. Let me back up. I guess to answer the question that we had from our public comment, looking at these drawings and my experience with drawings, this is a depicted existing site condition plan that is definitely noted not released for construction, so I don't think this needs to be sealed for the purpose of this hearing. I think, I'd probably lean over to David and Amy. This is just for the purpose of construction for the existing site conditions. Not for any type of construction.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's my experience in the industry as well. On the special use permit, do we know the length of the lease? And I guess my question would be, this special use permit would only follow this owner, correct?
It is tied to the property.
It is tied to the property. So from the standpoint, I guess a question for the applicant, is this a 10-year lease?
I don't know how long the lease is. I could try to find out here.
On up front when you're,
I do not know.
gotta get you on the camera. You're in primetime TV right now. so.
I do not know the answer to the lease, the length of the lease. I can ask, I don't know if it's been fully negotiated yet at this time. Pending getting this fully approved is when the lease would actually be signed at that time, so.
Okay.
But I will ask the question and see if they can respond.
So Jake was looking for some information. Do we want to you want a couple minute recess, Jake?
My preference would be, and maybe this needs to be in discussion, but my preference would be that we have some requirement for fencing. So just from an aesthetic standpoint, it's a corridor that has a lot of traffic. I think it makes for a little bit nicer look for the city. So whether, I'm open for discussion amongst the commission as far as whether that's just on the street or whether it's something that extends back, but I think we should have something there, so.
Mr. Chair, before if we break or anything for that, though, David, answer me this. Is it even possible to tie it to not an application, but to the leaser, or the leasee itself? So could we add a condition that if the lease is broken or ends, that the special use permit ends as well for this location? Is that possible? Because we've had this question more than once. Chair Funk is absolutely correct in that.
Well, so you have the ability to make recommendations on the duration, but I don't know if we can, I'm processing this as I'm
Because
talking.
we could tie it to the years of the lease, but let's say something happens, the lease gets broken, they part ways amicably, if nothing else, shake hands, and they leave after 5 years, and then
Well-
the SUP is still intact.
So I think there may be two things we're talking about. One is your desire to make the duration of the SUP connected to their lease at the initiation.
Correct.
But I think that's probably where the city's discretion ends. I don't think we could include an addition to the condition or a new condition that says something about the validity of the SUP in connection with provisions in their lease.
Okay.
Because that's something that we don't control, and you're granting a zoning application that the outside parties are going to rely on. Whatever that duration is, they're going to be relying on that for financing and other purposes. So I don't think we can tie it to terms of a private lease to be negotiated after you make your approval.
As such, the financing wouldn't be tied to such lease as well. Okay, yeah, that does make sense. Thank you, David, for answering a complicated question. Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. I think it's, keep it here in public comment, and we can go further in discussion, but I guess the special use permit, I wouldn't want to grant a special use permit for 10 years on this property if they only have a 5-year lease, I guess. Concern. But I will leave it at that. Anything else while we're in public hearing, and then we can close the public hearing and go to just Commissioner Trafton, is it about?
Thank you, Chair. No, I am looking at street level view of this property, and I mean, the fence is very close to the street. And they have nice landscaping in front of this building, but when you go down in front of where that fencing goes up and is basically 20 feet from the street, it's not the nicest looking. And then if you look at the property just south that has the sidewalk to nowhere and then lovely fencing, but you see through the fence there. I mean, it's a wrought iron fence that doesn't look like it's trying to protect equipment. So I can see why they have the 3-foot the barbed wire, the 3 things of barbed wire above it or whatever. So I guess my question is, is it possible? I mean, I feel like something does potentially need to be done there. I mean, it does. Is there any kind of improvements we can require for the property owner in this lease to kind of improve the aesthetics of that area? I mean, I drive by it regularly, and I'd never noticed it until it's brought to my attention, but I'm just curious what our options are.
Pardon me. Amy Nassif, Deputy Director of Development. A couple things. You can certainly, with the SUP, add a condition requiring fencing along Hamblin Road, vinyl fencing or site-proof fencing. If you could also request some additional landscaping there as well, if you liked. And in addition, while the applicant's requesting the 10-year, just again, you do have the purview to recommend approval, but for 5-year period or something instead. If you chose to do so as well, the applicant can always come back then at a later time and ask for a renewal, and then also ask to reopen for consideration of a longer time period, a later date, if they wanted to as well. But just some options for you all.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it looks like maybe they are gonna add some new landscaping. I don't know, they don't have those big evergreen trees that they're showing on the drawing, so maybe they're adding those or what, but, I mean, landscaping would be a nice addition in front of that fence. So what I hear you saying, thank you, is that we could add a condition to the, special use permit, and then are we still waiting on the answer about the lease, potential lease? That's all my questions, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Trafton. Yes, sir.
I have not got a response
Okay.
on that, but I'd be inclined to ask for it to be at the 10 years because they typically are not a short term. They do buy a lot of properties as well, and do new construction on them. And even if it was a shorter lease, I'm sure the lease always has as typical with commercial, has the ability to renew it prior to the end of that lease.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chair, I do have an answer as far as whether or not there was a condition placed on Herc Rental for any additional screening. And there was none. There were two recommendations. The recommendations that were made was, one was an amendment to staff's recommendation. And the first recommendation or first amendment made was to reduce the requested time period for the special use permit from 25 to 20. That carried. And then the second motion was just to approve the application with the amended 20-year time period, but there was no motion to place any additional landscaping or fencing screening on Herc Rental. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the commission while we're in public hearing?
I have a question.
Commissioner Jana Ford.
Thank you. Mr. Bouchard, this might be for you. I'm not going to dare venture into legal jargon, but I'm going to ask anyway. So in terms of the question about the lease and the length versus the tenure that we know, is there verbiage that we could say, like the length of the SUP pertains to 10 years or the lease, whichever is shortest, perhaps?
I think it would be a better approach to figure out what the answer to the question is and then make your recommendation from there, or the city council makes its decision, meaning you could, pause it here to get an answer to your question or move it on, and it could be answered before it goes to the city council. But it feels like it'd be better to know that rather than try to craft a condition like that. I'm already thinking of ways that they could avoid the impact of that condition on how they negotiate the lease. They could sort of make it irrelevant.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission? We will close the public hearing and open up for discussion. I think the two discussion points that I have are the length of the special use permit, and I'm going to say some sort of screening, and I'm assuming it's just on the roadside. I will, Mr. Benbrook, any inputs on either one of those, or you want to tackle one at a time?
I'll comment on both of them. Thank you, Chair. I think most people come before us looking for a 20-year SUP, and we're always a little leery of that. I think 10 years is a reasonable amount. It gives them a chance to be in the building and not have to be back here in a couple of years. But I do like the condition of having some landscaping in front of those fences along Hamblin. I don't like the vinyl fence idea because the vinyl fences tend not to hold up and they look just as bad as seeing the equipment. But I do believe that some landscaping there would help beautify it, not cost the new tenants too much to improve, and accomplish what we're trying to do, which is to make it look a little nicer along the roadside. Thank you.
Mr. Tuzinski?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd be inclined also to table the motion too until a time that we knew what the length of lease was going to be, if that's really a concern. I agree with Commissioner Benbrook that it's not much of a concern to me. I believe that 10 years is reasonable. We hope they're a long-term, many, many, many years past that tenant, and but that's just another option we can do. But one thing I would also like to say is, I also agree with Commissioner Benbrook on the fact of maybe adding some additional screening, but not necessarily improving the fence. Because just like, Commissioner Trafton said earlier, he hadn't even noticed this building as he drove by it multiple times until he was actually asked to look at the building. And so, I mean, it's a commercial area. They're gonna have commercial things and equipment there. Most of them are gonna be way higher than the fence is at all. So, I would be more inclined to leave the fence as is, add a few extra trees just to make the front look really nice, and then stick with the 10-year the permit, so, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jana Ford.
You know, I do agree. I think vegetation out front would be a nice add. I don't agree with the vinyl. I don't think that's a good idea here just because of durability, and then much like you had mentioned, you're gonna see things well beyond the top of the fence anyway. But I'd be interested in seeing if along the front, we could connect with the neighbor to the south that's got the metal railing, just to kind of help keep with the cohesiveness.
Thank you. Commissioner Trafton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't have an issue with the 10-year on this. I mean, we are usually asking for it to be less than 10. It would be nice to have that information, and, you know, I guess council, if we move it forward, could change that recommendation if they needed to, once that information came to light. But I'm in support of 10-year. I definitely don't think that we should be asking the applicant or the owner of the property to improve the fence or change it. I think they need that fence for security. But I do believe that having additional screening, vegetation, landscaping in front of that fence would be a nice addition. They have some really nice trees, but street level, you see right through that. They may not want that because of the security of people trying, I don't know, but I don't know it to be a high crime area in this city. I don't know there's too many high crime areas in our city, but I don't see any of the police department here, so duly note that. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I don't know if we want to think about adding a condition for vegetation. You know, I didn't even bring this up earlier around question, but, you know, I would like to see a sidewalk over there. I mean, but we would be building a sidewalk to nowhere on the north end. So we'd be doing, you know, a little for nothing. And so I don't feel like at this point in time, we're ready for a sidewalk there. I don't want to press that issue.
Mr. Chairman, actually.
I'm done. Thank you, Chair.
Actually, Public Works probably knows that there is a huge project that's going on right here that's going to add a significant amount of sidewalk. So just want to put my 2 cents out there.
Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Susan Berry, traffic engineer. The project he's talking about is 291 and 50 interchange. Doesn't quite go this far south. We did notice that there was a lack of sidewalk. We tried to get it, but due to the process that we're under, it's not, a special use permit is not the place to require sidewalk. So we did think about it. Unfortunately, we can't get it added with this application.
Thank you. Commissioner Arth, anything?
I have no problem with the 10-year special use permit. As far as the fencing, I do like the idea of vegetation instead of that. The thing is, during the winter time, vegetation doesn't provide quite the same amount of cover, but also taking into consideration the areas surrounding and the use of this area, I don't think that that's really a problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovelace.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that the vegetation is a good idea. And I'm okay with that use if that's, or with that solution if we think that's best. My concern, I guess, with the fence outside of the shielding of some of the product that they're going to have back there, the equipment, is also just the current state of the fence. It's in disarray. And so, you know, when I look at SUPs, I look at these as being an opportunity for us to be able to clean up existing conditions that I don't like. And I think this is an opportunity for us to do something with the fencing to where it doesn't look like such an eyesore.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier, anything?
I do echo the color on the
I'm sorry,
outside.
Commissioner
Hear me?
Frazier, is your microphone on? Because we can't hear you very
I
well.
believe so. Let me speak up a little.
There, thank you
Is that
very
better?
much. Just want to make sure it's captured in the minutes for you. Thank you.
Gotta get loud.
I was just wanted to say again that I do like the idea of the vegetation. I have driven by there many times, and the one thing I do remember, in addition to the building, is the color on the outside. I believe it's a red or orange or that sort of thing. So the vegetation would be, I think, welcomed as long as it is not overgrown so that you can't see the building. So agree with that aspect of it as well. So, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Kitchens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, boy, we're talking about sidewalks. I might just have to get on a soapbox over here. Why pay for a sidewalk when we can just steal it from another developer, right, and put it in over there? I'll save my political rants for another day on the propriety of balls.
Thank you.
I'm going to echo Commissioner Lovelace on this one. The fence in the front, while I understand, is probably, I know I said vinyl. I don't really care if it's vinyl. It's just me talking about an upgrade. I'm fine with any sort of upgrade, but the fence needs upgraded. In the front, it just does not look good. And security upgrade, fine with that. It just, Commissioner Lovelace is right. Now's the time for us to have that as a condition of the SUP. As far as the years go, we always have them come in here for 20 years. It's usually tied to financing as well. 10 years seems like a pretty easy cakewalk on this one, and I'm the first one to say, hey, let's down the SUP. I'm usually the first one to drop it a few years, but this one feels right. So them coming in, not asking the moon on SUP on the years is actually really refreshing. So I like that. Vegetation, yeah, let's throw some trees up there, make it look good. Just as long as it doesn't clash with the paint, I guess. But we definitely need vegetation in the front, make it look nice. That area is getting busier. It has a lot of frontage. We want it to look good. And I can't thank the applicant enough for bringing their business here and making that place look good and working with the city. So thank you to the applicant for bringing another wonderful business to this city. And that's all from me, Mr. Chair. But if I tallied everything right, it looks like we might have a couple of questions about a fence still. Vegetation is good. And I think the 10-year is okay with most people, but I'm not quite sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Sorry. We did hear back from the applicant, and they do have a 10-year lease, so we
Okay.
have an answer to that.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think the SUP question, length of time, is probably off the table since it would marry their lease of 10 years. I think I'm kind of with Commissioner Lovelace. This is our time to have an opportunity to tie something. Commissioner Frazier said, I've drove by there several times, and the color of the building definitely stands out to you. That kind of brings out the disarray of the fence, and I guess that would be my question to set up for Commissioner Tazinski. You're going to make a motion here, and I guess it's probably a consensus if we want to put a condition in there that the fence needs to be replaced.
Place or repaired?
I think there needs to be some, I don't know in this type
Long
of fencing
discipline.
if repairing it is going to.
Could we leave it as generic as that the city staff has heard our concerns? Can we say that, well, you know, the condition of the fence and additional plantings the city staff will work with the applicant on making improvements? Then we can let them hash it out?
I think we would want to be specific that, saying let's, approving and so on and so forth. I think we need to be specific. If we want the fence replaced, we want the fence replaced. If we want the fence repaired, we want the fence repaired.
And my concern to that is how deep do we want to go? Do we want to say we want 2 trees, 5 bushes? That's what I mean is like, because we also would like additional landscaping, and then what is that as part of it? And so that's why I was hoping that we could.
Excuse me, Amy Nassif, Deputy Director. To your point, we could split these up into two buckets if you like. Pertaining to the fence, if you do decide to have it just staff directed to work with the applicant, I think to the chair's point, if you just want to specify also that it's the fencing along the frontage of the property directly adjacent to Hamblin Road, then that gives us the direction location, and to be replaced with a material other than chain link. Then it gives the opportunity to either be that black anodized metal or the coating or
And
whatever.
that's just the thing, is I'm not concerned about it being chain link. I think the concern is that it's not new or
Or just
that it's
be
in
replaced.
disrepair, yeah. And I don't know if anyone really wanted vinyl. I think, Commissioner Kitchen said that it was just an idea, but
I'm going to say straight out, chain link's probably not good on the front. Doesn't look good. So I like what Ms. Nassif said about that. That's my personal opinion. I'm only one up here, so.
And from what I heard from the landscaping as well, it sounds like landscaping to be planted along the entire frontage of the property along Hamblin to be a combination of deciduous and evergreen trees. So then that way you do have that year-round coverage and also have the variety as well. So that you don't get just, the intent is there with it eventually being that buffer. Okay. I think we have enough guidance. The intent and the point is for screening and visual screening through vegetation. Not to have too much so it's overcrowded and then you have the problems with the root system, but to make it meaningful, we can work with that, it's fine. Thank you.
We're clear on the landscaping, we just need to be clear on the fencing. Is that where we're at? That commercial non-chain link, is that fair?
What I've heard so far is just not chain link and not vinyl, but yeah.
You could call it an ornamental metal.
Oh, I was going to suggest, since the property to the south, according to Google Earth, has more of your traditional metal wrought, probably not wrought
Looks
iron,
like a
but-
black anodized metal
Right,
fencing to
so
the.
maybe the
yeah.
verbiage is to match adjacent in somehow, whatever form it happens to be, to kind of keep with that.
The extent possible or something.
Sure.
so that would be condition number 5, I believe. 5 would be the fence, and condition number 6 would be the addition of deciduous and evergreen trees.
Landscape screening will be planted along the frontage of the property adjacent to Hamblin Road with a combination of deciduous and evergreen plantings. Or something.
They can hang Christmas lights.
Like what she said, yeah, landscape screening. Yeah, what Amy said, yeah. Landscape screening along Hamblin Road.
Along the frontage of the property adjacent to Hamblin.
So one thought as you're crafting your motion there, it would be appropriate in this circumstance, I think, for your motion to include the recommendation on these 2 points as articulated by staff, and we've got a record of what she just said.
Okay, we'll try.
You're ready.
Yes, all right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I move to recommend approval of application number PL 2024-060, special use permit for equipment rental facility, 1100 Southeast Hamlin Road, McAdams applicant, with the following 2 conditions added. Condition number 5, to replace the fence along Hamlin Road, the front of the building, east side, all along the property, to match adjacent properties to the extent possible. And condition number 6, to add landscape screening along the frontage of the property adjacent to Hamlin Road with a combination of deciduous and evergreen trees as detailed by staff.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote, please?
Mark Kitchens,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jonna Ford,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski,
Yes.
Randy Denbrook.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We skipped one of the commissioners on
Our
the.
new member.
Oh, for the entire evening?
I thought, I just, if you're comfortable, you certainly can, or you can abstain from the vote.
I'm comfortable with this one, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
thank you, Amy, for helping me with that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And the application has recommended for approval. Before we dive, I know we have a couple more applicants waiting patiently. Does anybody need a break? We'll take a 5-minute restroom break. Okay.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's the plotter and the software that we use. There's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're gonna go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple. Quick.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words, mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route. Officers en route, 914, Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
I'm like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as the co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. Say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
When the person called on the phone, she said that there was a dinosaur walking down her road. Of course, we had to go out and check that out. We get out there, and it was a big African tortoise, probably 60 pounds, walking down the road. When they walk, they really stand up tall, so I could see why she thought it was a dinosaur. I'm Rodney Wagner. I'm the manager of Lee Summit Animal Control. So as you can see, we get all sorts of animals here. You got some guinea pigs off to the side. All the windows up here are animals that are adoptable right now. Every one of these dogs is ready to go and ready for adoption. And the same thing with our cats over here. A lot of cool cats in here now, so this is our 3-acre lot we have out back. This is where we do all the walking of dogs, exercise. We also have a side yard off to the side over there, so we can let them run loose. They can run together, and we have what's called play groups. Kind of like having a bunch of kids. Here's our vet room. We have a vet that comes out twice a week. This is our Sally Port where we bring the animals into. This is one of our animal control trucks, and we can hold up to 6 animals. We have a lift on the other side to put big animals in. We actually have temperature gauges in here and in the truck to tell us how hot it is. Once it gets to a certain temperature, we bring all the animals back here immediately. So this actually has traps in it, but we do a lot of wildlife trapping. I mean, a lot. So bats, potbelly pigs, horses, cows, emus, a lot of reptiles. We had a citizen one time that
We will rejoin our, sorry guys. We will rejoin our meeting whenever, you go? You good? Okay. All right. We will rejoin and we will now open up application PL 2024-064 preliminary development plan, 1,900 square foot ADU in the backyard of 512 Northeast Promised View Drive. Anyone wishing to provide testimony or speak on behalf of this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation? Oh, here we go.
Hello, Thomas Freeman, 7555 160th Street, Stillwell, Kansas. I am the applicant for this. This is for an accessory building on the back of a property, and I'd like to defer to Ian for all the details on that.
Okay, thank you. Come from?
Just here.
I was looking for you up there, and the next thing you know, you're right there.
That's kind of manifest. Okay, so good evening. My name is Ian Treffren. Before I begin, I'd like to enter into the exhibit, Exhibit A, a list of exhibits 1 through 13.
Exhibits 1 through 13 noted and entered into the record.
Okay, so this evening I'm presenting to you application PL 2024-064, a preliminary development plan for a pool house ADU. The property is located at 512 Northeast Promise View Drive. It is zoned R1 single family and is surrounded by R1 to the northeast, south, northeast, east, south, and west, and agricultural zoning to the north. The character of the neighborhood and surrounding properties is predominantly very large estate lots with detached single-family homes on them. Some more reference for the site, the small sliver of property to the northeast, the 524, is owned by the HOA, just for reference. And the Ignite Future Land Use Plan is identified for R1 single family as well. So the reason why this application is before you today is because the UDO places a cap on the gross floor area of accessory dwelling units of either 1,000 square feet or no more than 50% of the principal structure's floor area. The proposed ADU is 1,971 square feet, which, while is less than the 50% of the principal structure, is more than the 1,000 square foot limit. Moving over to the site plan, the principal structure on the site is just under 12,500 square feet. On the site plan to the very top right, highlighted is the ADU/pool house, and the principal structure wraps around the front of the lot. The overall lot is just shy of 2 acres in size. And other than the area of the ADU, the application meets all the other UDO requirements, so setbacks, density, parking, impervious area, height, architectural compatibility, bedroom count. There was a neighborhood meeting held on April 9th where 11 members of the public attended, and the primary concern at that meeting that was brought up was regarding stormwater. Part of the standard conditions of approval going forward with this application for the final development plan will include a master drainage plan to help address those stormwater concerns. But other than that, there was not a lot of, nothing else of note was brought up pertaining to the application. Moving over to the elevations, the ADU is pretty similar to the principal structure of the site, looking at stucco, engineering stone, and standing metal, I apologize, yeah, stucco, engineer stone, and is very similar to the principal structure itself. So this is the rear and front elevations, and then here are the sides. And then kind of comparing it to the principal structure, similar materials. It actually looks a lot like the principal structure, just smaller. So because of the scale of the principal structure and the scale of the neighboring properties, staff feels comfortable with the proportionality of the ADU within the context of the neighborhood, and feels comfortable recommending approval of this application because it meets all the other UDO requirements for ADUs, and is really just not hitting that, or exceeds that 1,000 square foot limit. And then just for reference, I believe it's just around 15% of the principal structure, if you were to like compare the size of the ADU against the principal structure. So with that, staff is recommending approval with the following conditions. First being that the ADU is limited to 1,971 square feet, and that the development is in accordance with the PDP dated November 30th and the plot plan dated April 17th. I'll now stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Anybody from the public that wants to comment? We'll start with Commissioner Kitchens.
No comments, no questions, just a nice pool house.
Commissioner Frazier?
No questions or comments at this time.
Commissioner Lovelace?
None.
None.
Crafton?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was curious about the stormwater runoff. I know stormwater in this vicinity, the neighborhoods are very concerned about stormwater. I wasn't clear, I know you said there was a master development or master plan for stormwater runoff or whatever. What, could you talk more about that?
So our development engineer on staff made a comment as part of the standard conditions of approval. Well, actually, I'll let Sue Piles, our engineer.
Oh, thank you, Sue.
Hi there, Sue Piles, Development Engineering Manager. As part of the review, our engineer did recommend that a stormwater report be submitted with all of the drainage calculations and drainage directed to the swale that they have shown to make sure that the water, any of the water going off is accounted for and engineered, and a master drainage plan for the area be submitted, and then an as-graded master drainage plan be submitted after the construction is done. That will be to make sure that the swale is constructed according to plan, and that all of the recommendations that come forth in the drainage study will be accounted for and done.
Great, thank you, Sue. My other question is related to impervious surfaces. Commissioner Janiford has schooled me on this, so I am just curious, because I did look at the house and the accessory dwelling unit. It looked like that's about 17% of the property, right? Of that, I mean, I'm asking you this question on the fly. I'm sure that's probably not something you've considered. I did see the square footage of the lot was around 86,000 square feet. And so I was able to calculate a 17%, but then that did not include all the driveways and cement around the pool and all that kind of stuff, which does cause problems with water runoff. So I was just curious if, like, with that consideration, do you have any sense of what that impervious is on that property?
Yes, it is right about 34%.
34%, so roughly a third of the property. Is there a big, I was looking at one of the photos, is there a pretty significant drop off on the back side of that? I just noticed like that one photo.
There is a substantial grade change behind the principal structure.
Do we see the grade in the back where the pool is and the house?
Let me pull up our map with contours.
And while you're doing that, thank you for sharing that the ADU was only 15% of the square footage of the house. So, in the garage, I'm guessing that was included of the garages, multiple.
Yes, it was.
So thank you for that, sir.
This connection's very hit or miss.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we have to have a real number or something. It's not a real big concern of mine. I guess the bigger concern was the impervious
I think if you pull up the site plan, it had floor area elevations or floor slab elevations.
It
That
looks
makes
like
sense.
there's about a 16-foot drop in total.
Oh, okay, great.
Or
All right, yeah, we got it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Jana Ford.
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuzinski.
No additional questions.
Commissioner Bimbrook.
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think my question is for staff. So when we talked about this, when did we put this? Wasn't too long ago, we did the UDO for accessory dwellings, correct?
That's correct.
How did we come up with our calculation of the 50%?
It was 1,000 square feet or no more than 50% of the principal structure, whichever is less. And how we came up with that was research of neighboring communities, best practices from APA and other organizations, and averages and research that we've seen done.
Okay. And then I'm assuming with the way this lot lays out and the HOA owns the lot beside the current person who's got this house has the house on the other side as well. There's no construction planned behind this. I understand our accessory dwellings, we hung around 1,000 square feet and we're practically doubling the size of this one, but I get the size of the house. I was just trying to refresh my brain of why we came up with that calculation. So there's nothing that can be built behind this?
nothing that wouldn't be, right now it's zoned agricultural, so it'd have to be some sort of large residential. Without splitting off the lot, I can't see anything else being built. Let me see if I can pull this up. So you can kind of see it's not really laid out in a way that's conducive without significant replatting and, yeah.
Yes.
Can you go back, Ian, one slide? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do you see there's a drain inlet? There's a curb inlet right there, and there's a 15-foot access easement there. I'm almost wondering if that's a detention basin or something going in there for the stormwater. I mean, that's what would be my thoughts. And if you look at there's another grading plan that shows the contours and flow arrows that are leading to that area too.
Yes, it looks like, I can't show it because this doesn't seem to want to switch over, but there is a BMP on that corner lot there owned by the HOA, and that inlet does feed into it, yes.
I don't have anything. Any other questions from the commission? I will close the public hearing and we will open up for discussion or a motion. Any discussion, everybody?
No comments.
Mr. Frazier?
No comments.
Lovelace?
Thank you, Chair. Of course, I have comments.
There's no signs.
I actually like the design of this house, how it is a reverse, it doesn't impede, and I think the way that it's designed with the accessory unit back, I mean, there's really gonna be nothing behind it, so it makes sense to support moving the accessory dwelling unit. So thank you for your efforts to make that look. I think the look of it is nice, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jana Ford. Commissioner Tuzinski?
No, sir, no comments.
Commissioner Bimbrook?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. No, Commissioner Jana Ford, you'd like to lead us in a motion, please?
Absolutely. I move to recommend approval of application PL 2024-064, preliminary development plan, 1,971 square feet, ADU in the backyard of 512 Northeast Promise View Drive. Thomas Freeman, applicant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote, please?
Mark Kitchens,
Yes.
Sherry Frazier,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tonya Jonah Ford,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski,
Yes.
Randy Bembrook.
Yes.
The motion has been recommended for approval. Thank you. Sorry we chatted too long on those other ones. We will get to our final application here before we get to our final application. We will open up application PL 2024-078, rezoning from RP2 and AG to RLL, 2800 Southeast Ranson Road and 1300 Southeast Hook Road. Jacqueline Maloney, applicant. Anyone wishing to provide testimony or speak on behalf of this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Perfect. The applicant would like to come forward and state your name and address for the record. Don't fall down the steps, please.
Hi, I'm Jackie Maloney, 2800 Southeast Ranson Road, Lee Summit, Missouri, 64082. I am the applicant, and this is for my personal residence. And I don't have a presentation. I'm deferring to staff.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm back.
Hi, Hector.
Hector Soto Jr., Senior Planner. I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 14.
1 through 14 entered into the record.
The application before you is to rezone approximately 5.35 acres from Ag and RP2 to RLL, which is residential large lot. The two images here show the existing zoning of the area. A number of you may be familiar with the Ranson Road corridor adjacent to James A. Reed. It is a primarily agricultural corridor characterized by a lot of larger acre lots developed with single-family homes. There's an elementary school. And at the very south end of our city limits, which you can see here, Ranson Road and Hook Lane at this corner serves as the one of the corporate limits of that southeastern part of the city. The two properties, the 2800 Southeast Ranson Road and the 1300 Southeast Hook Lane here are depicted here in red. And on the right, you can see where the property sits relative to surrounding identified recommended land uses under the IGNITE plan, which shows this area as being residential 1, which is lower density, single-family residential development. So I'll go over some of the history that's included in the staff report. So this general area was developed in a couple different phases. Again, we're dealing with two currently separate parcels under the same ownership. The primary residence is on the smaller rectangle that's about 1.3 acres here on the west side, the east side of the property, and this larger piece is about a little bit more than 4 acres. So as you can see, in green is the agricultural zone limits, and you have this kind of more apricot color or an antique coral color, if you will, is denoted here by the RP2 at that northwest corner of Ranson Road and Hook Lane. So as you saw in the earlier zoning map, the RP2 zoning is very much out of character with the surrounding developed area. Like I said, most of it is zoned agricultural. To the north, between here and Bailey Road, there are a couple parcels that do have RDR zoning. But by and large, most of the properties is zoned agricultural. So here on the image on the right, it's the same image as the one on the left, a little zoomed in and taking out the zoning layer just to make it a little bit clearer. So between 1968 and 1973, the property zoned or address 1300 Southeast Hook Lane had 2 barns built on them. In between that, in 1971, all of this area here that's currently RP2 was rezoned from agricultural to RP2 zoning, duplex. And the sole purpose of rezoning that 11 acres in my research was that those 11 acres were under single ownership, and it was the desire of the owner of the property to sell a portion to one of his children where that person wanted to build a duplex on their property. So, okay, well, the city council or the board of aldermen at that time approved the rezoning of those 11 acres to allow for that. And this line here is the approximate split of that property. That was basically about 6 acres that made up this portion here of our P2 zone property, and there was an additional little bit more than 5 acres here. A duplex was never built anywhere in that area. So I guess best laid plans, as they say. So it never happened, but on this 1,300 Southeast Hook Lane property, there were two barns that were constructed, and over time, the property was used for the keeping of horses. In 1984, the surrounding area was subdivided into some larger acre tracts known as Ranson Farms, which is how this lot here, where the residence is located, came to be. A residence was built later in 1984. At some point, based on aerial photography, maybe the applicant might have a better feel for this, but based on aerial photography, it looks as though the keeping of horses stopped somewhere around 8+ years ago. But the keeping of horses dated back to the 60s. From that point forward, until 2001, when the UDO went into effect, the keeping of horses was no longer allowed by right on property that was not zoned either ag, RDR, RLL, or single-family residential. But there was already the keeping of horses on this duplex zone property, and as such, it was considered a lawful non-conforming use. But about that 8-10 year ago mark, that operation or the keeping horses seemed to have stopped. And once you stop that type of use for a minimum 180 consecutive days, that non-conforming condition it's extinguished and you cannot reestablish it. So now fast forward to the applicant purchasing the property and her having the desire to reestablish the historical use of that property for the keeping of horses, and that brings us to the application before you now for the rezoning of the property to RLL. So there are 4 conditions associated with the keeping of horses on property. One is that the zoning, again, has to be ag, RDR, RLL, or R1. You have to have minimum 1 acre. The density of animals is limited to 1 animal per 1 acre, and that you have to use the keeping of horses is for personal enjoyment, not as a commercial operation. Okay, so then the question becomes, on the applicant's property, what is the best path forward to try to achieve her goal of reestablishing that use? So we've got the 4 zoning options. R1 immediately is stricken from that list, and that's solely for the reason that our R1 zoning requires that property has to be connected to the city's public sanitary sewer system, or the gravity system. All of this area is on septic, so just by UDO requirements, R1 off the list. We'll go to the other extreme, ag. The property in total, once these 2 properties are merged, which the applicant does have an application to merge her 2 platted properties into 1 5-acre tract, ag zoning requires a minimum 10 acres in size. So we're only going to be at about 5 acres, so that means ag zoning is off that list. So that leaves us with RDR and RLL. Both require 1 acre or half-acre minimum lot sizes respectively. The difference now becomes a matter of the setbacks that are required. And then the far column on the right depicts illustrates what the existing setbacks are for the existing residence. So as you can see that on the front property setback standpoint, the residence sits well back off the road. It sits almost 300 feet. The minimum setback requirement for RDR on the low end is 50, RLL is 30, so they're well in compliance with that. Side yard setbacks, that's when we start getting, and the rears, when we start getting the significant differences of the RLL, RDR requiring 50-foot setbacks, which is consistent with ag zoning as well. RLL gets you more to kind of a middle ground between more rural development and standard single-family zoning. The existing setbacks for the residents don't meet the minimums for RDR and fall within compliance of the RLL. So that is where staff and the applicants settled on RLL being the most appropriate, in that it would be in compliance with all of the development standards for that zoning district. As I mentioned here, the two shapes that you see here, although they're under single ownership, they are considered two separate tax parcels to the county. And once this application goes through and is approved, if it's approved, this lot line that divides these two parcels will essentially be erased, and it will just be one contiguous 5.3 acre property that will have RLL zoning, and thus will meet all of these minimum requirements in order to reestablish the horse pasturing as an accessory use for the applicant. So with that, staff recommends approval of the rezoning from Ag and RP2 to RLL as requested.
Thank you, Hector. Do you have any questions or comments from the public at this time? I see none. I will go to the commission for questions for staff for the applicant. Commissioner Kitchens.
No questions, just like redoing things that were done half a century ago.
Perfect. Commissioner Frazier.
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovelace. Commissioner Arth.
No.
Commissioner Trafton.
No, sir.
What? Commissioner Jana Ford.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Tuzinski.
No additional questions at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Benbrook.
No questions, thank you, Chair.
You. I don't have anything from the commission, so we will close the public hearing. Any comments from Commissioner Kitchens?
Hector did a great job explaining that in thorough detail on the history of that. That took some research. Good job, Hector, on that one. And I say, let this lady have her horses, for Pete's sakes.
Thank you. Commissioner Benbrook, would you like to lead us in a motion, sir?
Yes, sir. Chair, I move to recommend approval of application 2024-078, rezoning from RP2 and AG to RLL, 2800 Southeast Ransom Road and 1300 Southeast Hook Lane, Jacqueline Maloney applicant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Could I get a vote on this application, please?
Art Kitchens,
Yes.
Sherry Frazier,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jonah Ford,
Yes.
Chip Tuzinski,
Yes.
Randy Benbrook.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval. Thank you, Jackie, for hanging out with us all night. I know you enjoyed it.
One real quick question for you, Jackie, as you're walking out. Sorry, Mr. Chair. How did you know that you had to change the zoning in order to have a horse there? I wasn't even aware of that. Like, how did that come to fruition that you came to the city? Hector? That's why the history is pulled up. Okay. Thank you so much. Hector did a great job. Thank you for following the proper circumstances.
Hector, I want you to know for the record that Shannon reached out to me and he said that this agenda was really full and he had a lot of things on here and that Amy was going to take care of everything for him tonight, so.
Oh, well, we can follow that
Appreciate
plan.
We have one more public hearing here, and we will open up application PL 2024-072 Unified Development Ordinance UDO Amendment, updates for temporary signage standards to Article 9 signs, City of Lee Summit applicant. Anyone wishing to provide testimony on this application, please stand and be sworn in at this time. Take it away, Hector.
Hey, Hector Soto Jr., Senior Planner. I'd like to enter into the record Exhibit A, list of exhibits 1 through 10.
Exhibits 1 through 10 noted and entered into the record.
So the UDO amendment that is before you tonight is to make some updates, corrections, clarifications to the temporary sign standards, regulations of the UDO. And where this all started was back in September of this past year. Staff took forth to the CDC some opportunities that we saw to clear up some inconsistencies, reorganize the UDO, bring language closer into compliance with more recent Supreme Court decisions as it relates to content neutrality, the impacts of content neutrality on sign ordinances. And that was essentially the gist of it, those three areas. So it's provide clarity, compliance, and consistency, because there were areas in which, although we were calling them temporary signs, there was verbiage in our temporary sign section that would essentially allow folks to have de facto permanent signs, and that we were establishing no time limitations on how long you could display certain signs. We did for some, but not for all. So then, so some of this is information that, and I forget who was on CDC at that time, who was the liaison in there. I believe Ms. Arth was, so she's seen some of this before. So, temporary signs, we had under current verbiage or current standards, we have some of those that apply to commercial and, residential and non-residential districts and uses. And this table here provides a comparison as to how our current regulations lined up compared to other area communities. So on the far right, you could see the maximum duration. Every other community has a finite or a sunsetting of when you can display those signs. Now, they could be a little bit more defined as in terms of 60, 120 days, and some of them are tied more specifically to the duration of certain events. We had those options that ranged from 15 days to, unlimited, and which becomes a bit of a challenge when it comes to, one, making it clear to applicants or to the public how long they can have signs. And then also just from an enforcement standpoint, it does become a little more difficult for our staff to kind of have to memorize or navigate all the nuances to the ordinance to figure out whether something is more on a fixed time allowance or if something can be allowed to be to have an indefinite time period. So one of the opportunities for improvement was to provide, again, by just saying unlimited, you're essentially saying some of these signs can be permanent, but so we're providing better definitions to what constitutes temporary signs and establishing those time limits. So it makes it easier for the public, staff, and enforcement of those regulations. So these standards here in front of you are those for residential type uses. In Lee Summit, you can have one, generally by right, you can have one temporary sign, limited to 6 square feet, but again, no time limit. So if you wanted to have a save the whales sign in front of your yard, you could. So we defined how big it can be. We can define how many you could have, but then, again, it's a temporary sign, but yet you can have it forever. So, okay. So counterintuitive. And although we allowed one by right, there's also verbiage in there that makes allowances for other signs other conditions to exist in order to allow for additional signs. So it did made allowances for times during when a residence may be available for sale, for rent, for lease. It also makes additional language that makes allowances during times of election periods. And I think by trying to thread too fine of a needle there by calling out all these other types of temporary uses, essentially what we were getting down to is we were having to do so, we had to describe what type of sign it was by placing a name on it, and therefore referring to what the content is. Which runs counter to more recent Supreme Court decisions to say signs have to be looked at equitably. A sign is a sign is a sign. It shouldn't matter if it's a sign for construction, for sale.
Content neutral, that's
Oh, I'm
content
sorry.
neutral.
What did I say?
I'm not sure.
Did I say in content?
You did not, no, content neutrality. So your sign code cannot your enforcement and your regulations cannot be dependent on what the message of the sign is. You can regulate location, number, and size, but you can't make that distinguish upon the different land uses or if you like whales or not. Save the whales.
What did I say? What
didn't
what
say.
word did I say? Now I'm curious to know what word I said.
We'll play it.
Okay, well, okay. I must have, huh? Yeah. I'm not all here. Yeah, it is. So in essence, we were creating different rules for different types of signs, which is something that we just couldn't do. So again, sign had to be looked at, a sign is a sign is a sign. So we started looking at a number of different things, establishing time durations, providing clarity on what constitutes a temporary sign, and the elimination of any reference in our ordinances to the different classes of signs. So what we could do is, some of the things that we can do when it comes to establishing different standards for different types of signs is we can make some of those dependent on, let's say, the form and function of those signs. So wall signs, monument signs, we can distinguish between stake signs, banners, and quill feather signs that you see. But again, we can't make any regulation dependent on what they say. So.
Put the wackly wiggly wonder guy in there.
What's that? Those are not allowed, yes. So some of there are basically three sections in our ordinance that are affected by the proposed UDO amendments. One is the definition. Previously here, you could see in the strike through that for banner, it just said see temporary sign, but under the existing language, it was calling out a bunch of different signs based on the content of what they were, as opposed to just making references to more the type of material, what their appearance might be. So we're just more defining it by its form and function as opposed to what it might say. One thing that became perhaps confusing to staff, newer staff, the general public, is where do you find some of these regulations in the UDO? For example, the temporary sign table that calls out, the different regulations. If you went to the temporary sign section, you could not find the table that actually tells you, what's allowed where and the size. You actually had to go to the permanent sign section to find the temporary sign section ordinance. So to make the UDO a little bit more intuitive and user-friendly for the public and staff, part of the proposed amendment is to relocate the temporary sign regulations to the actual temporary sign section and taking it out, removing it from the permanent sign section. Some of the verbiage here for temporary language, you could see a lot of strike-throughs. We're perhaps being a little bit too verbose with some of our examples of what constitutes temporary signs. So again, by shrinking down, or I guess using word economy, we're hoping to say more by saying less, instead of, again, being overly descriptive and overly prescriptive of what the regulation might state. So this would be more of a cleaned up version of what our ordinance states. You've got, it more establishes more specifically the time duration, so anyone in the public can just come to this cleaned up version of the temporary sign section and just more clearly see what the durations are that are established. So it's how long, where, and what they can look like, essentially. We did away with any reference to, again, the function of what the sign might be, and just more stuck to form, time, and location. The strike through here is also reflective of some of that by just focusing on more what they can look like, as opposed to other considerations that might make it a little bit more confusing to interpret what our ordinance is. Okay. This one refers to the relocation of the temporary sign section, the table itself to the temporary sign section. So here is what the revised time informational table for temporary signs will look like. So right now, if you were to look at our tables, different standards are established for different zoning districts, and then within those, depending on what the purpose of it or the content of it, they had different allowances. And as it's currently written, there were about 13 line items in total that one had to navigate through to locate and identify how long, where you can put a sign, how big, and whether or not a sign permit is required. So with the verbiage that's in front of you here and on the next page, we're now reducing that to 7 line items that are more pared down just to residential. The table in front of you here speaks solely to residential lots. The first 2 line items here refer to anything that is not multifamily, and the 2 lower ones refer to multifamily developments. So time limits are established for all of them. It more clearly indicates how many signs are allowed, which would be no more than 4. Under our current verbiage, although you can have the 1 by right, if it's during a time of sale, that gave you another 1, but then during times of election, you were allowed to have 1 additional sign per candidate, per belief, per issue. So that quickly kind of became a calculus problem where you could hypothetically, I suppose you could have upwards of 9 or 12, during the election period. So here we're saying 4. That is it. You can have 4. We don't care what it says. In terms of the content, it can be yard sale. My child's on the football team, Save the Whales, whatever. It doesn't matter. 4. The one additional allowance that we do have is that during a time in which the property is up for sale, will allow up to 1 more. But just in general, this is the limitation. It's just clear, concise, and it's a one-stop shop for what our temporary sign regulations are. And then these would be those for non-commercial type uses. We're open to have any questions, but that constitutes the scope of the UDO amendment that's in front of you now.
Hector, usually I start from one end and go to the other with questions, but tonight we're going to start with Commissioner Trafton.
Mr. Chair.
Favorite topic.
Mr. Chair, just a reference, I do have to leave, so I will miss Mr. Trafton's wonderful soliloquy that I'm sure he's about to embark
Commissioner
on.
Kitchens had to leave, and so we've timed this specifically around, I do have a laundry list of questions. I do appreciate your efforts in making these sign amendments. I'm just joking. I do not have any questions. You've done a wonderful job clarifying. I'll make my comment now. No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Jana Ford,
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Tazinski,
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Bimbrook,
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Frazier, any questions on our signs?
No questions.
Commissioner Lovelace.
Questions, but since nobody else has asked this question, I can't leave it, to where nobody asks the question. If you have a for sale residential real estate sign that's up in your yard, it says 5 days at the end of the event, 90 days or 5 days at the end of the event. So is it the maximum? So if you didn't sell your house for 120 days, are you allowed to have it for up to 125 days then? I just wanted to be clear
Yes.
because some houses, don't end up selling after 90 days, and I don't want this to be something where you guys are inundated with requests for extending your signage periods on a residential for sale sign.
Right. So for the time period for which it is made available, then yes, it can be up and would have to be terminated 5 days, within 5 days of that.
Perfect, just confirming.
I have a question. I pulled up the UDO while you were speaking. And so as you guys are making all these changes, I assume you're doing it all online as well, and you're probably, like the divisions, this Division 5, so you're moving things around a bit through each article? Because I know you guys were working a lot on this. I was just curious.
Yes, I don't remember if, it will be, yes, whatever change we make will be reflected in the Muni code that is available online. I think right now we changed our plan where I think it's going to be updated monthly, so thereabouts. So we would hope that within a month, thereabouts, upon passage, if passed, that it would be uploaded, available.
Well, thank you for your work on all of this. It's a big project.
Yes, thank you guys for doing this, and I'm really, really sorry that you were disappointed by Commissioner Trafton in all of this. Worked so hard to be eligible for this. If we don't have anything else from the commission, we'll close the public hearing. I don't think there's any discussion to have. You'll reopen the public hearing here. Go ahead. Come up to the microphone. Just come on up. Give us your name and address.
Whiter, 5201 Northeast Maybrook Road. My concern would be no trespassing signs. You know, if you have a 40-acre tract of land and you want to post it on all sides and you want to have, you know, a no trespassing sign maybe every 100 or 150 feet, you're going to easily exceed what you want. And then I recently put white vinyl fencing fairly close to a road, which I've very seldom done. It's not in the right-of-way. But it'll be the first time that I've let my horses get that close to people walking or riding bikes, and I've noticed how, you know, the horses draw attention from them, and I think liability-wise, I probably better get some signs out there that say, you know, please don't pet, feed, or, you know, scare the horses. So, what goes on there?
So our ordinance has an exempted sign section. So what I would categorize that as a warning sign. And our ordinance exempts warning signs on private property, which is how you would, you put them on your fence would be on private property, as long as they're no more than 3 square feet. So as long as they're no bigger than 3 square feet and they are on private property, a warning sign like that example is exempt from the sign ordinance. So you would be fine in doing that.
So each sign no more than 3 square feet?
Correct.
That we will close the public hearing and open up for discussion. I don't think there's any. Straight to the Honorable Mr. Trafton. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say for the record, as someone who actually recently reviewed the temporary sign for political reasons, I appreciate the simplicity that it's been updated and changed, because it was a little bit confusing for someone new to the process. So absolutely, thank you.
I echo Commissioner Frazier's comments. I think that you guys did a wonderful job cleaning this up. I appreciate it. You know, I love some UDO language. And I'm sorry that I couldn't give you more questions. Your nonverbal face was classic when I said I was going to ask you a bunch of questions. And so I wish I could see that again. It was awesome. So with that, I move to recommend approval of application PL 2024-072, Unified Development Ordinance Amendment, updates for temporary signage standards to Article 9 signs. City of Lee Summit applicant.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Could I get a vote, please?
Sherry Frazier,
Yes.
Jake Lovelace,
Yes.
Dana Arth,
Yes.
Donnie Funk,
Yes.
Terry Trafton,
Yes.
Tanya Jonah Ford, Chip
Yes.
Kaczynski, Randy Benbrook.
Yes.
The application has been recommended for approval. We have hit our round table, and we dove right into everything, and we would like to welcome our new commissioner, Commissioner Sherry Frazier. Welcome to the team. And the other piece of roundtable that I have was, it was very nice of Terry to keep the Unified Development Ordinance to a minimum. Anything else from the commission?
I second that.
I third it.
Staff, anything? I know Amy's got.
Yes, just one quick item. With our new commissioner, staff is going to be having a training orientation with her, and you're all welcome to attend if you like. We're going to be going over just basics of planning versus zoning and the differences, the items to be reviewing, staff's role, planning commission role, all the really fun stuff. So if anyone else would like to attend, we're going to be doing this on May 20th, 21st, or 22nd. It's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of not next week, but the week after. Just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't know if anyone else would be interested, and then I can send up dates with you and myself and Ms. Frazier, or just let me know.
Thank you.
There'll be snacks if that helps.
Snacks.
I just thought.
Yeah, and those cookies.
I think
Thank
I'm
you, Jeannie. Anything else from the commission, staff? Anything? We are adjourned.